Actually, I think I'm gonna Gesundheit again. You should let that out. I feel like you're gonna explode if you just hold it in.
Nah, I've always sneeze that way.
Welcome. You are entering a strange realm. A realm of what ifs. What if movies, television shows, and video games were better, worse, bizarrer, or downright different? What might they look like? Find out on today's episode of CineCasters.
Hey, welcome back to CineCasters. This is the show where we watch movies and then pitch them back to one another, or sometimes movies and video games or whatever. My name is Janglez, and I'm joined by Alyssa.
Hello.
And today we are looking at the 1990 some odd movie
1996.
96.
This movie is older than I am.
Yeah, that's upsetting. Dragonheart. So, was this your first time watching this movie?
I don't actually know.
What does that mean?
So, it's one of those cases where it's like, oh, I think I've seen this before. And I think I enjoyed it, but I remember there was like some things that could be changed. And then I was watching it, I was like, was I thinking of some other extremely similar movie?
Well, I think my favorite was the whole conversation we had around this movie's legacy.
Yeah, I didn't know there was a sequel, but then I looked it up later.
Well, hold on. It was like, you were like, Dragonheart, and I was like, okay, just to be clear, are we doing the original Dragonheart and you were like, there's a sequel, and I was like, there's 2 sequels, and then you looked it up, and apparently there's 5 sequels, and one came out this year.
One came out in 2020, and It's like, how is this still going?
And they're prequels? I guess because he was the last dragon.
One sequel.
Yeah.
Which comes after they kill the last dragon,
Which
so
means
that's weird.
There's no way he could have been the last dragon, which doesn't make sense. But
yeah,
also it depends on like how canonical these movies are, right? Like,
yeah.
And whether they're made by the same writer or are they an actual sequel / prequel, or are they just like a direct to movie video sequels that Disney likes to sneak by us?
Yeah. And then the other 3 are all prequels. So there's 5 movies in total.
Again, are all of them canon? But yeah, that was bizarre where you were just like, what the heck?
Yeah, I had no idea.
Yeah.
You would think that there would be at least some traction. Like it seems to be, like when I was looking it up, it said it was a cult classic.
It is a cult classic.
So I'm like, why was there no like announcement of this movie being released last year? Like, I don't know.
Because the first one is a cult classic doesn't mean the sequels are any good. Unless I think this movie is a cult classic because it's cheesy but still good. Whereas there are lots of movies that are cult classics because they're bad, like Trolls 1 and then Trolls 2. They're bad just because they're bad. Mm-hmm. And people love that, right? Like I've seen all the Sharknado movies, I think up until 4. I just haven't gotten around to 5 yet. And they're so good. There's 2 Lavalantula movies.
No, I'll pass.
So I think we should get into this. I think the reason that this movie, or I should say, I've seen this movie so many times, like to the point where when you said Dragonheart, I was like, yeah, okay. And then when I watched it, I actually didn't have to pay attention because I was quoting it. Like I've seen this when I was younger. I saw this movie so many times. It was on all the time on television, and I had seen it before that because I like fantasy. Like when I was younger, I was all into the dragons and the fantasy kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I had seen this movie so many times, but I actually had a hard time repitching this one because it's so ingrained in my head. I was like, what do I change about it? It's so it's not good, but it's just so much of what it is, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. It's interesting that you are the one that's watched it so many times when I feel like this is something that's like right up my alley.
It is right up your alley.
I don't know why, like I'm watching it and I'm going, have I seen this? I don't know.
Maybe you're just having one of those.
Some other movie that I was thinking of where there's a talking dragon and a knight and a weird king.
I feel like there's lots of movies that are like that.
Yeah.
A talking dragon. I mean, any movie that has a dragon in it is often a talking dragon.
It's just your stereotypical fantasy movies from the 90s, right?
Well, I mean, even if we go back to like the inspiration for the modern dragon, which is Fafnir, and then into Smaug, right? These are all like riddle speaking ancient serpents, as it were, and then they became Smaug, who is the foundation for all like dragons since then, right? Anything from D&D is, there are good dragons and bad dragons in D&D, but they're all based off Smaug, right? Smaug, or however you pronounce it.
Yeah.
So I don't know. So goods and bads. What were your thoughts on this movie?
So this was like a half and half, kind of good, kind of bad, where it was really funny, but it also was taking itself a little too seriously at the same time. I was like, is this a serious fantasy epic, or is this like
a cheesy comedy romp?
A cheesy comedy. Yeah, I couldn't really distinguish what it was supposed to be. Also, it said because I watched on Netflix, it had it tagged as feel good, and by the end I was like, I don't feel good. I feel sad. This is not what I wanted right now.
Yeah, I don't know. It's supposed to be like this sort of tragic ending where Draco gives up his life and joins the stars in order to sacrifice himself. And
I guess it's all about like the self-sacrifice and Knights of the Old Order.
Yeah, and the code. Except here's the weird thing. I don't feel like Draco actually, like, not that he doesn't deserve his ending. Sometimes I'm like, well, what was learned? Like, I know that the code is something that they keep coming back to. This, a knight will be brave and use his might to protect the weak and that kind of stuff. But Roland is our main character, and he's the one who like wants to protect the code, and he's the one who convinces Draco that the code is, or that Einon has like been taught the code and will be a good king. And then Draco gives him his heart. So like, I don't understand what was sacrificed or given up, I guess, because Draco did a thing on the word of Roland, but in the end, Draco is the one who has to sacrifice himself because Roland's word was false. He was wrong. Now, I get that their friendship is something, but I actually think that their friendship was probably like a different dimension to this story. I like their friendship, and I think that it works on that level to have Roland have to give up his friendship with Draco. But in terms of like the sacrifice and whatnot, without that friendship, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Because Roland was the one who made the mistake. He was the one, and now he has to kill his friend. I guess that works, like his mistake, and now turns out dragons are, I don't know. It's a little convoluted.
Yeah, like what are the actual stakes for the characters, not just for the whole country, right?
And also, how come? It was a little unclear because it's a soft magic system. They're like, oh, Draco gave half of his life force so that Einon would live, and so that means like as long as Draco's alive, Einon is alive. But how come the reverse doesn't hold true? Clearly, when Einon gets hurt, Draco gets hurt, but the reverse is not also true. They're not. It's like Einon or Draco is bound to Einon, but not the other way around. So, how does this work?
Well, we didn't really. I guess we did see Draco get hurt. Like there was that one scene where what's his name had the sword in Draco's mouth, and like I kind of imagine if we had panned over to Einon at that point, wouldn't it have been funny to see him like, oh, why does my mouth suddenly hurt? Like, oh, my jaw is really sore.
That's what I don't get. Is like, is it because Einon was already dead? Like, but then there are times where like I don't know. It seems very strange where Einon gets hurt and Draco feels it.
Yeah.
It's very loose. I mean, it works because it's sort of a soft magic system, soft world building, but it's still kind of frustrating because like I would like to have seen more about how that worked or had it explained more, because otherwise it was just kind of vague. It was like, let's do this for plot.
At least it was like consistent though. Like it wasn't just like he would get hurt and then not be healed. And then sometimes he would get hurt and then be healed.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if I would call it consistent. It was vague for the use of plot, and they didn't rely on it too heavily, except for that last bit where he has to like die in order to win.
Yeah.
But, yeah. I think for me, I mean, this movie's chock full of like really famous actors. I thought it was weird that some of the actors were British and some of them were not. Like, why is Dennis Quaid not doing a British accent when they're clearly supposed to be in like 900 AD or BC, CE, sorry, 900 CE. And I'm like, it gives us a time frame. We're supposed to be in England, but like both Kara and Dennis Quaid, or Kara, whatever her name is, and Dennis Quaid are not speaking in British accents, but everybody else is, because they're all British actors, including Sean Connery as Draco. Mm-hmm. What I also thought was really funny is that the character's name was Draco, and Jason Isaacs is in this film. Mm-hmm. And Jason Isaac is, of course, Lucius Malfoy, Draco's father.
That was pretty funny.
And then we also have, what's his name? I can't remember the actor's name. Thelwis. David Thelwis? He plays Remus Lupin in Harry Potter. He's Prince Einon is Remus Lupin.
Wait, really?
Yeah, you didn't notice?
No.
Yeah, Prince Einon plays Remus Lupin in the Harry Potter series.
Probably because I thought of Einon as such a slime ball in this movie that I would never put the two together,
So it's funny sometimes to see, like, if you watch, you can see, like, Lucius Malfoy getting reamed out by Remus Lupin.
That's funny.
Yeah. Like the meta narrative going on there, but no, that's not actually how it works. It's just when you're a British actor, I think you wind up working with a lot of other British actors over and over again often.
Yes.
So
that is probably how that happens.
Yeah. I'm a sucker for Jason Isaac. I think he's a wonderful actor in the stuff that he's in. So big fan. Yep. And then we had lots of other Brother Gilbert is Peter I can't remember the actor's name. Peter Postlethwaite.
Yeah, it's like so he's I really liked Brother Gilbert. I found him extremely relatable. The like he's like reciting something and he like finishes it and he's like, that was great. What did I say? Like I've done that before. Yeah. As someone who writes, like I'll be like in my head thinking through like, oh, this would be really cool, and then I go and grab my pen and I go, what was it?
Yeah, this is why I don't think about things until I'm ready to write them down. I just think in vagaries.
Oh no, I just overthink everything.
But he's probably the best character in terms of actual character, because everyone is pretty one-dimensional.
Yeah, he feels like he's actually got like a moral dilemma.
Yeah, around killing, and it doesn't have anything to do with the dragon really, but
no,
it's interesting. I don't know. How did you feel about Roland as a character?
I mean, I liked him. He reminded me of actually, I'm gonna sound so sacrilegious right now, okay? So the whole thing with him and Brother Gilbert,
yeah,
when they were like traveling together, I was just in my head going, toss a coin to your witcher. I was like,
but that's because the bard and the knight, or bard and adventurer, is like a classic trope, right?
Classic, yeah. But it's just, I guess, the most recent one that I've really been, I guess,
thinking
paying more attention to
as we get close to season 2 of The Witcher.
So hyped. It's coming out next month. Anyways, off topic.
Not sponsored, but could be Netflix.
Yeah.
We do a lot of Netflix movies.
We do. No, I liked him as a character. But I feel like he didn't do much growing. He was like this knight who was like, yes, passion for the code, and then
but then all of a sudden he's like, no more passion for the code.
Yeah, and it's like he doesn't. You would think that because he is such a strong believer in the code that he would stop and think about like, was the prince ever actually listening to me when I was talking about it? Like, yeah. I feel like he would use his brain a little bit more, but he didn't.
Yeah, I think a part of the problem with this movie is that it lays itself pretty heavily on a couple premises that are pretty shaky.
Yeah.
Like there's not too much to go on. Like I have very few notes on this film because I've seen it so many times, and I'm just like, okay, like most of my problems with this are just like, it's not a bad movie, but it's not a great movie either. It's just sort of getting swept up in the fantasy and sort of I guess maybe they were good effects for the time, but Draco looks super fake.
Yeah,
now.
yeah, he did.
The fire looks good, but also like just certain like world building things, like the fact that they only go back to this one village. Like, there's only one fucking village in this entire kingdom.
That's honestly, what it feels like.
Yeah, it feels like it's only that one. And this is supposed to be all of what? Medieval England? Or whatever?
Something like that.
Or like a fantastical version of it? I don't know. It's dumb. The mom character is, I can't remember her name, Azelith or something like that.
Azelith, yep.
She's really irritating too, because she'll like do things for her son and try to save him, and then in the next instant trying to kill him. And I understand why, like she sees his corruption, but it's like, Jesus, like how hard would it have been to just not do those things? I don't know. Did she not see the corruption in Einen either? Like, I don't the premise there is messy.
Yeah, it was all like this, like, oh, he's being trained by a Knight of the Old Order, which means he's obviously going to be just like the Knight of the Old Order and be a good man, and then he didn't, and everyone was like, oh, Pikachu face.
Yeah. But why? But it's like immediate too. It's like as soon as the dragon thing happens, he's like, now I'm king and I'm going to be terrible. And it's like, oh, the dragon must have poisoned him. And no, he was always that way. You guys were just too dumb to notice. It's like, that's not a good plot point unless your characters are like out and out dumb. But the idea here is that
he never seemed sly either. Like, it's not like he looked like he was planning on like taking all of these skills and then like becoming king later and being evil. Like, he never seemed sly about it. He was always fairly outright about like, oh, the peasants are revolting, and like he seemed excited about that. And then
watching his father battle or whatever. Yeah, it seemed to be like this whole, like he's like this innocent little, I'm wide-eyed and filled with wonder, and it looks like my dad's in trouble. I'm gonna go save him. And then he gets hurt, and then he's like, and then all of a sudden it's like, now that I have the dragon's heart and the crown, the world will be mine. It's like, okay, what changed here?
Yeah,
like
it's so weird.
It's so weird. I almost when I was writing my pitch, I was almost like, well, what if the dragon's heart actually did corrupt him? Because that almost makes more sense based on his character flip-flopping. That almost makes more sense for the story that we got if the corruption somehow did affect him. Because I would have been like, whoa, like, oh, maybe it did affect him.
Yeah. Can I also just, it's supposed to be like a 12-year time skip.
6
in
years.
between.
6 years.
No, it said like 12.
Oh, I thought it was only 6.
No, it said like 12.
Oh, wow, okay.
And like, I'm like, okay, this king who's supposed to be like, what, in his 30s now, still looks like a teenager.
That's just because the way they dressed him and shit, to try and make him like look like a young, I don't know, I think he was supposed to be like 14, yeah, I guess, so he would have been just 30 or 29.
Yeah, so he's like supposed to be like older, but he still looks like a kid.
He looks like Remus Lupin to me,
I guess. And then just the rest of the cast didn't really change either. Like, Kara didn't look any older.
Yes, she did.
Her hair looked a little longer. That was it.
What time skip are you talking about?
The big one.
Yeah, okay, Kara goes from being this tiny little, like, redheaded 12-year-old to being a woman.
Not really.
Yeah, it's two different actors.
Really. Is it really?
Yeah.
She looked the same.
No. That time skip was like 12 years. They had two different actors for Einen, and they had two different actors for Kara. It was only Roland that stayed the same. No.
They all looked the same.
No. So after he gets the heart,
even his mother looked the exact same.
Yeah, his
I was
mother,
like, you didn't age a day?
Yeah, they didn't change. They didn't change actors for Roland or Azelith. But they did change actors for Einen, and they changed actors for Kara, however you pronounce it.
They looked the exact same.
Nah, man, you are high as fuck.
No,
I can't believe I have to say that. Go back and watch that part. I'm tempted to make you watch it right now, like on recording, because like.
Do you know when it was?
They change. I'm not gonna look it up right now. They change actors like halfway through the not halfway through, but after they do the dragon thing, because the person who wounds him, is a little girl with red hair. That's supposed to be Kara.
She wasn't little.
Yeah, she's like a 12-year-old.
No.
Yeah.
I'm looking it up right now.
Look it up.
Dragon
I can't believe we're doing this on actual stream because I'm flabbergasted that you didn't notice. It's like right after he gets
the sound down.
like right in the beginning when he gets the dragon's heart.
Yeah.
He gets injured. So find the part where he gets injured, and I'm sure you can just scroll through it. This is actually happening right on.
This is actually happening right now. Okay, so here's the fight.
Okay,
My
so find the
father.
little girl. My father. Find the little girl.
Oh, my crown.
Yeah, he gets the crown, and now he has the crown.
He gets stabbed.
Where's the little girl?
She is not a. That is the same actress.
That is not the same actress.
Okay, I gotta wait until it gives me like a full body shot of her so I can see how tall she is.
That is definitely not the same actress. She's like 14. I'm just watching your face as we go through this.
No, okay, so there she is, right?
Okay, now
there
cut
she
ahead.
is.
Now cut ahead.
Cut ahead. Here she is. That's the same actress.
No way! I don't
That
believe
is the same
you.
actress.
They must have worked some movie magic there. Because why would they change actors for the king, but not the? I gotta go back and.
I don't think they did.
I gotta go back and look at this. Oh, I'm certain that I'm pulling up IMDb right now because you are so bullish.
Okay, you're right. He does look like Remus Lupin. You're right.
He is Remus Lupin. Let me look this up.
Okay, there he is. And then back at the beginning, where is he?
Different actors. 1996 fantasy. I can't people are gonna be listening and be like, "What are you guys doing?"
Yeah, what is going on right now? Okay,
Young
yeah.
Einon
Okay,
is
so they did
Leos,
change the
yeah.
actors for Einon.
Yeah, man. It's like you don't. They did change the actors for Kara too. I'm looking at the IMDb page right now. You're full of shit.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I'm looking at the IMDb page.
Okay, then I guess.
Okay.
I guess.
Anyway, back on track after that 5-minute long escapade of Alyssa not believing me. I don't know why you don't believe me.
I don't
you should
know.
question-
Maybe there's like a thing wrong with me where I just can't recognize faces or something.
You have like aphasia or whatever it's called. No, aphasia is when
Yeah.
you can't eat things. I can't remember what it's called.
It's something like that. Something similar.
Yeah, I used to know what it is. Okay, back on track now. So in the time skip, they do change actors. Can confirm.
Yep. Okay.
Have proven. Thank you, IMDb. Sources cited. Is there any other goods and bads from this movie? Like, this movie sort of for me was just kind of there. Like, it's not a good movie or a bad movie. I don't really have that many thoughts about it anymore. I've seen
you watched it so many times.
I've seen it so many times that it's just sort of a terrible, terrible, cheesy staple of a movie.
I really liked Kara. I thought that, like, as someone, like, she words. I didn't write this down. I was just thinking about it earlier this morning. I like her because there's no like emphasis on her being a woman wanting to fight. It's just that she has this injustice that she needs to get vengeance for.
Yeah.
And they just don't, like, I like that there's no emphasis on it. She just is this badass girl.
Yeah, I still found that a little weird because it was still in the movie watching it was still like she's the girl.
Yeah.
Like she's just the girl on screen. There are no other important female characters. And I did like that there's not a love plot for her.
I liked that too a lot.
I think that's important, but I didn't really feel like her character was really all that well fleshed out beyond anybody else's. That's not her fault, and it's not a fault of the acting. It's just like none of the characters are really all that well done in this. Mm-hmm. I think the big pull for this is just that they have this on-screen dragon that looks pretty good, and it's played by Sean Connery. It's James Bond.
Yeah. Yeah, people love Sean Connery.
People still love Sean Connery.
I know I do.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. It's there's not really, that's what I'm saying. There's not really much to this film. It's sort of like this classic fantasy having fun, cheesy adventure story, which is fun to watch. But when you really get to the nitty gritty of it, it doesn't make a lot of sense. And it's not really that great of a movie.
No, it's fun to watch, though.
It is fun to watch.
I had fun watching it.
I also had fun watching it. And I'll probably watch it again because it's so much a part of my childhood. Like, I would have loved
I might also
to.
watch it again.
Yeah.
Maybe just for
Apparently
like
you
a cheesy movie night.
Never seen it before. Yeah. Should we get into
Apparently.
pitches?
Yes.
Would you like to go first, or would you like me to go first?
This
is not my best pitch.
Mine is like 5 pages long.
Oh, geez.
So
Maybe I'll go first then.
okay.
Okay. So this is not my best either. So my movie, so in this version, the kingdom has been growing and becoming more prosperous, but now dragons have started to become a pest all over. So the king declares that knights from around his realm will be given like a special title, like Order of the Dragon, and a great reward for every dragon they can prove they killed. So knights go out and many die, but a few are able to kill dragons and become like Order of the Dragon or whatever. So Roland is a knight that refuses to kill the dragons. He thinks they're noble creatures, and instead is made, because he refuses to like do this on the king's orders, he's made to teach the king's son, basically for insolence. But when the king is killed and his son is injured, Einan's mother is so distraught that she, basically like acting as a queen, makes a deal with one of the dragons that has been captured, and says that if he uses the dragon's magic, if the dragon uses this magic to heal the prince, then the queen agrees that the dragon can go free. Great. And Roland is there for this. When Einan recovers, he understands that dragons are like really, really powerful creatures, more than he thought. And instead of like being like, okay, you're free to grow, he declares that all the knights of the realm must stop what they are doing and hunt down every dragon. So instead of just being given a reward for killing a dragon, now this is what knights are for. Ooh. All the knights, stop what you're doing, stop being lording over things, and go and kill out every dragon and bring back its heart as a sign of its death, because they're too powerful. So Roland is appalled after the dragon saved his life. So he's like, what the heck? Aina's now going to try and kill them all. So he basically like breaks with the king and is banished because of it. Roland then sets out on a quest of his own and basically stops other knights from hunting dragons. And then eventually he meets a dragon that's injured, but it's not the same dragon. Einan killed that dragon that saved his heart. So eventually he meets another dragon that is injured, and a knight's about to finish it off, but Roland kills the knight and saves the dragon. This effectively now makes him an actual outlaw, because before he had just been banished, but now he's gone directly against the knights of the realm under the king's orders, which means now he's like an outlaw. Roland discovers that the reasons dragon, like he and the dragon basically they talk with each other, and the dragon is like, oh, you just wanted to kill that knight to like get the glory for yourself. And Roland's like, no, I never killed any of the dragons. And the dragon basically tells him that the reason all the dragons started attacking villages before was because the expansion of the kingdom had caused them to lose food sources, like encroached on their territory, and they were forced to find food somewhere. So now this knight and Roland and Roland and the dragon are now on the run from the king, and they basically go on like evading capture that way. So in mine, like I'm only going to say like 6 years have passed instead of 12. So 6 years have passed, and Einan has created himself a fortress, and apparently there are no more dragons in the world. But Einan is super paranoid, and he has heard the tales of Roland and Draco all across the land, and knows that one dragon is alive, or believes at least. He's that paranoid. Yeah. So he sends out his knights specifically to find these two. Roland and Draco are hounded and fight back, and when Roland is injured, Draco finds out that he is in fact the last dragon. He didn't know it. And the two think their time is up. Draco takes Roland to a nearby village, and the people are terrified, but when they see he just wants Roland to get better, and like they're like, okay, we don't really trust you, but we do want, we will heal this person. Mm-hmm. As Roland heals, Draco speaks with a village girl named Kara, who says her father was killed when Einan rounded up slaves to build his fortress. She wants to fight back, but the villagers are not interested. They don't think they can win against Einan's powers. And also, there's a rumor going around now that Einan is actually immortal. He doesn't age, and he doesn't die. So Draco says that he and Roland have basically been invading Einan for 6 years, and it's been good, but they feel that there's nowhere else to go anymore. And Roland thinks he's going to die, and he asks Draco, he's like, I've seen the dragon do it, if you would save your life by sharing some of the magic. But Draco says he cannot, because it turns out that he is in fact the dragon that already shared his life force with Einon.
Oh.
And there's only so much magic in a dragon's heart, so if Draco were to give up more of his life force, he would die himself. So Kara's perplexed by this. Einon has claimed, his immortality, but there's only so much magic in a dragon heart. So Draco would die, so then how come Einon wouldn't eventually die when being struck? Like, how come that's not happening, right? If a dragon can die, then so too must Einon, if that carries over. So Kara goes to the castle and discovers that Einon has not been killing dragons because they're dangerous. He's been killing dragons so that he can claim their hearts, because that's where their magic is.
Awful.
Yeah.
Total slime ball.
Right. So meanwhile, back in the village, Draco, I love your reaction, sorry. Total slime ball. Meanwhile, back in the village, Draco is becoming very popular for being kind and friendly when everyone thought they were like greedy, gold-stealing, killing dragons, because that's what the king wanted them to think. And that's sort of the perception we get from like older style dragon stories anyway.
Yep.
So I thought that might be interesting to be like, oh, hey, look how like modern dragon sensibilities versus like this propaganda of old school fairy tale dragons. Kara returns and tells everyone of what she's seen, and the townspeople are outraged that the king would basically kill dragons, but also he's like killing them for magic and only using it so he can't die. Like, dragon hearts have all sorts of different kinds of magic. That's how dragons can breathe fire, and I'm sure I would give them other kinds of magic. I just didn't think about it. But like, so they're like, hold on, you have like this basically this stock power of magical batteries, and you're using it so that you can't die and can stay young forever, instead of letting the dragons be, or I don't know, using the magic to do anything else, literally. So Roland begins training people, but he's injured. He's gonna live, but his injury means he's never going to fight the way he did again.
Right.
And he'll probably not be able to fight at all, but he can still teach. So someone at the village, I'm sure we can have a character or whatever, sneaks out and tells the knights about the dragon staying at the village and Roland. And so Einon shows up with his knights, and they fight the villagers, but the villagers do fairly well. They're on their home turf. So Roland finds out that Einon is there, and they face off, but because he's injured, he gets maimed this time. So now he's like mortally wounded, but he also manages to hit Einon, who also retreats. So Einon uses one of his hearts to basically resurrect himself from life. So I would actually have it like Einon is like on the verge of death, like going to die, dies. Somebody brings him a heart, and he like comes back from the dead. Fucky. But his mother watches this happen. So Roland is dying, and Draco knows, and he attempts to, like, he knows that like he basically flies off and tries to kill Einon, but he can't get close to the fortress because it was built basically to keep dragons out. Like, it was designed for fighting dragons. So Draco gives up his magic for Roland to heal him, and he winds up dying. But he says, the time for dragons is over, apparently, and I would rather die this way, like saving you, than in any other fashion, because they're friends. And so Roland then is fully healed, not even injured, and takes his men to the castle. And Kara is trying to get into the room where their hearts are, but she is stopped by Einon's mother.
Oh.
Yeah. Roland and Einon duel, and Roland strikes Einon easily now that he's fully healed. Einon runs for the dragon hearts, only to find that his mother has broken all of them with Kara's help, and they are all useless. So he kills his mother in rage, but Roland then finishes him off in turn. So Kara reveals that she had actually saved one heart, and they can use it to bring Draco back, according to Isleth. But Roland refuses, saying that Draco knew the time of dragons was over, and that the dragon's magic should be forgotten if this is what it's going to make men do. And so he buries the heart. And that's the end.
That's the end.
You were so excited there.
I was. Yeah. I was like, yes, we get Draco back, and then it wasn't.
His sacrifice has to be meaningful. If you bring him back, I feel like that's a subversion of the meaning behind it.
Hey, that's almost like that's what happens in a lot of modern media.
Yeah.
Where they just like, sacrifice. Just kidding.
Just kidding. We brought you back.
But it's the thought that counts, right? Yeah.
Yeah, no, don't do that. Like, we've talked about this before. Like, you were saying how in like the critical theory behind children's stories versus young adult stories versus more adult stories. Like in children's stories, you have to come home and everyone is safe. In teen stories, you can have this more rebellious change at the end. And in adult stories, you can pretty much do whatever the fuck you want. And by adult, I don't mean like adult. I mean like, stories for adults.
Yes. Things that are not for children.
Things that are generally not for children. So I don't know. That's why like when you're doing a children's thing, I think it's okay to bring people back. But I do think it lessens the sacrifice that's made. The point of a sacrifice, at least in terms of Joseph Campbell's Heart of Darkness. That's Joseph Conrad. Joseph Campbell's hero's journey. The point is that they have to come back changed. Your hero has to have given something up, and the ultimate sacrifice in death is a great way to do that. Your friend, in this case, Roland, or in my case, in my story, Roland winds up having sacrificed his friend so that he could become more powerful, whereas Draco winds up sacrificing his life to bring back his friend. Like it's meaningful. And when you undercut that, you sort of like, well, the action is still there, but nothing was now given up. Yeah. Right? The action of like, I did this knowing I wouldn't come back is there, but it's made less meaningful, not because the action wasn't as important, but because in the end, it turned out you didn't give anything up, even though you thought you would.
Yeah.
So,
but I like that you had it so that they buried the heart, because then that makes it so that there is still like the potential for a sequel, like maybe someone finds it or something.
Well, I was sort of thinking like burying the heart was like a metaphor for bringing prosperity back to the land now that Einan is passed. So like Roland is sharing the magic with, like, giving it back to, ashes to ashes and dust to dust. We are all dust in the wind. Thank you, Kansas. Anyway, so that's mine. This is not my greatest pitch ever, but I had a hard time with this one. I wasn't really sure what to do with it. I thought about maybe rewriting it from Kara's perspective, but I basically did that with Willow last week. And if you haven't read or seen or listened to my pitch on Willow, it is one of the best pitches I've ever done. It's like quintessentially amazing young adult fiction.
I do plan on giving that one a listen.
That wasn't me reprimanding you. That was just
but I do actually plan on giving that one a listen, because you did tell me
it's one of my best pitches.
Like, this is you got to listen to.
It might be on par with Brave.
Really?
Yeah, which is
all right.
One of my best pitches, which isn't up on the channel yet, but will be up in the next couple weeks probably. So.
Right.
Because I'm re-uploading everything.
CineCasters Classic.
CineCasters Classic. Look forward to that one. That is still by far my favorite pitch I've ever done.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, hit me.
Okay, buckle up. I'll try to skip over some parts as I go.
Go for it.
Okay, so I figured we'll start with the same cheesy training scene. Sure, whatever. And then on to the thing with the peasants rebelling, because, sure, it felt like a fairly solid way to start the movie. And the same thing happens where the king dies, and then Einan goes out to save him, or to at least collect the crown, and then he gets bumped by the redhead woman and stabbed by the house. I thought that was kind of funny. Also, then it's not really like the blame is really on her, because it was an accident. So Bowen is Roland. What is his name?
I thought it was Roland. Hold on.
I thought it was Bowen.
It might be Bowen. I might have messed that up terribly. Let me look this up for a second. Carry on.
Because I kept hearing different things every time someone said his name.
Let's have a look here. It is Bowen. You are correct.
Oh, it is Bowen. Okay. Yeah. So Bowen is actually the one who brings Einan straight to the dragon without stopping at the castle. The same kind of thing goes down where Bowen is just like, oh, Einan is not his father. I've trained him with my own two hands, and he's learned the old code. And that without the crown prince, there will be many fights for the throne and many people will die. And the dragon is just like, yeah, okay, sure, whatever. I'll heal Einan.
All right, I'll give you this ultimate power.
Yeah. And so he actually like gives his heart to Einan. Like, it's not heart, like part of his heart. It's just like his heart. But the dragon still lives without his heart because magic.
Because magic. Soft
world building. So yeah, I guess we can get that scene where Bowen is just like, I pledge myself to you. If you ever need me, like, call on me and I will come, and thank you for saving
Call on me.
and thank you for saving Einen, and you know, just like a knight being over the top and knightly.
Sure.
So he heads back with Einen to bring him back to the castle. By the time that they get there, the arguing has already begun, and it's like a huge surprise to see Einen still alive. So they immediately like rush him through what is that ceremony called?
The crowning ceremony. I know what you mean.
I thought there was like a different name for it, but I called it the crowning ceremony because I also couldn't remember the legit.
I can't think of it
for
right now.
So they like rush him through the crowning ceremony so that people like so that he can work on getting the peasants under control and just like dealing with the whole situation that was left behind by his father.
Coronation. Yes.
Coronation, thank you. Whew. So after the coronation, Bowen is just kind of wandering the castle because he's waiting for instructions. Like no one's told him what to do. Because he is supposed to like serve under the new king, but he also hasn't sworn to the new king yet, but people are still just like doing what he says for now. So while he's wandering, he sees Einen's mother and he tells her about the dragon and how how Einen has the dragon's heart. And together they agree to try to keep Einen pure and aligned with the code so that they uphold their side of the bargain with the dragon. And over the like a little montage, we see that this is true. They continue to like remind him of things of like if he's about to make a decision to like, I don't know, kill someone, then they'll be like, hey, but don't forget the code. And he'll be like, I know about the code. Meh. You know, he's like a teenager.
Yeah.
So he's just, you know, I mean, that doesn't excuse his behavior.
Nope.
So after a few days of this, he gets really fed up with his own mother and he locks her up in the dungeon.
Oh, good for him.
So Bowen was not actually around when this happened. He heard of it. And then he actually is just like really angry. So he goes to the quarry where Einen is, and he plans on confronting Einen. But when he gets there, he sees Einen taunting some peasants and he's like just about to blind an old man. I didn't really have it so that it was Kara's father because I just thought that having it as anyone would be effective enough.
Yeah.
So Bowen confronts Einen about the code and like none of this is what I taught you and you've changed since the incident, and Bowen gets it in his mind that this is not the new power of like having the throne or his father's death or, you know, any personality trait that Einen might have had previously just coming to light. No, it was definitely the dragon. Yeah. And so at this point, Einen is obviously quite mad at the fact that Bowen is just yelling at him in front of other people. And so he's just like, okay, well, you're out, you to the dungeon, right? So Bowen...
That seemed to work with my mom.
Yeah, it seemed to work with his mom, but no, not gonna happen here. So Bowen fights his way out through the other, like the guards and the knights and whatever, and then heads towards the dragon's lair to confront the dragon and see if the king can, or if Einen can be changed back to how he was before. So there's an argument saying that the boy was always tainted, that like he never had a pure soul. Don't give me, what was that look?
I'm listening. Sorry.
Okay, I thought you were like...
No, I'm like thinking,
about...
I'm imagining it in my head at the same time. So sometimes I'm like, that's why sometimes I do the looks, because I'm like,
yeah.
Sorry, I do the same thing when I imagine things. Like I'll like move my head around as I imagine.
I do the same thing.
Yeah.
I'm glad I'm not the only one. But I just thought the look that you just gave me was like, no, excuse me.
I'm just imagining it in my head. Go on.
Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, the dragon's basically like, oh, the boy's heart was always tainted, and the strength of my heart only like amplified the strength of his
badness.
Yeah. Bowen doesn't believe it, so he draws his sword, but he gets blown away by the dragon. Basically just like, you're not worth it, right?
Draco uses whirlwind. It's super effective.
Yeah, basically. So Bowen is like, fine, I obviously can't fight this dragon. I can't change Einen. I'm just going to quit. I'm done. Can't be a knight in this sort of a place. Maybe I'll go find a different kingdom to live in, right? So he's on his way out of the kingdom when he runs into a young woman. She sees him because he's still dressed like a knight and starts running and yelling something along the lines of, "It wasn't me, it wasn't me, it wasn't me." So Bowen's obviously like, what is this? Like, what is this about? So he chases her down to see what the heck she's talking about. She's like basically in hysterics when she gets caught, saying, "I didn't try to kill the new king. It was an accident." And so he gets the full story from her as she admits that she bumped him into the sharp piece of wood that's on the house.
Built on the
and
house.
that Einan has been sending people to go find her, and she can only assume that he wants her hanged, so she's fleeing the kingdom and never coming back. And Bowen is like, hey, me too. You want to go part way? And so she's like, I don't know, man. I've seen you with Einan. And he's just like, well, let me tell you the story on the way, or like my story on the way. And so they leave together. Instead of a 12-year time skip, I'd like, we'll do a 2-year time skip because that's nice and short, and then we don't have to switch actors and actresses.
Which apparently you didn't believe. Just throwing.
I didn't believe.
Just throwing that out there.
I did not.
I knew it.
We are reintroduced to Bowen and Kara with a similar scene for how we were introduced to Bowen and Einan at the start of the movie.
Oh,
training.
Good parallelism.
Thank you. So Kara is actually using an axe. They don't have a sword for her because she just didn't want a sword, I guess. And she has a backup knife or two in case she gets disarmed. And she actually knows how to use them. Like, she seems to be keeping up with Bowen in a way that Einan never was able to. We see just in their banter that Bowen treats Kara more like a daughter, and Kara clearly admires Bowen. But there's no talk of like a knight's code of honor here. It's just, he's just teaching a new student how to fend for herself. So they go into the town that they've just, I guess, been staying at, and they hear that the neighboring king has hanged his own mother.
Oh,
so
good
Bowen
for
is
him.
silent and pretends not to hear, and Kara is very upset at the injustices happening in their old home country. So they leave the town to go back to wherever they're staying. I didn't really have that planned out in my head.
Yeah.
Kara admits that she wants to go back to get the peasants to rise up again. And after some bickering about how dangerous it is, Kara says something along the lines of, "Oh, you don't trust me. You don't trust me with what you taught me." And he's like, "Well, yeah, of course I trust you, but you can't kill the king." And Kara misunderstands, is like something along the lines of like, "Okay, you just think that I'm incapable of killing the king."
You were unable to, yeah.
Yeah. And she's about to storm off when he's just like, "No, it's my fault. I did something. The king is unkillable." And so the way that he worded it this time stops Kara, and she's just like, okay, this is weird. So she hears him out, and we don't actually, as an audience, have to see this, but he basically tells her about the dragon and how it gave its heart to Einan, and now it's impossible to kill Einan without the dragon being there as well. So Kara is just like, well, let's go kill the dragon then.
Yeah. Let's do it.
So they sneak back into the kingdom, into Einan's kingdom, and make their way to the old cave where Bowen remembers the dragon hiding. They don't find him, but they've resolved themselves to killing it, so they continue, or like to finding it. So they continue searching for it while avoiding large villages and opting to buy supplies from like small shops while trying to hide their identities. So as they are traveling through the kingdom, they hear more disturbing things about what's been happening in the country. So the castle that Einan built was almost finished, yet they still continued to cart more peasants to the quarry every day. And they've been carting dead bodies out every day as well. So it's just like this cycle of death there. He's raised the taxes on almost everything and added tolls to as many major roads as he can. He's also been ruthless with any of his advisors as if it seemed like anyone might try to not backstab.
Disagree.
If they disagree with him or disagree. And many of his advisors have died over the past 2 years. So Bowen is ready to give up because he's just like, this is a lost cause. And he also doesn't want to face his old student, kind of thinking that this is all his fault, but he's just afraid to do it because he knows he can't be killed. When Kara, so he's like ready to give up when Kara has an idea. If Einen knew about the dragon and their connection, don't you think he would want to keep it close? So Bowen and Kara realize that the new castle must have been built to keep the dragon nearby. Right? So they head over, they try to figure out how to get in, they observe throughout the day, find out that there's like a small gate at the back or something. I didn't really think that part through.
They get in. That's the important
and
part.
they get in, they go in at night. So they start off pretty well, they get in, get through a few hallways, trying to find any sort of clue when they find King Einen's chambers. He doesn't seem to be there, but they figure there must be some secret passage there because, again, Einen would want to keep this close to him, and he doesn't seem to be very trusting of anyone. So they're correct, but they only know because it opens while they're in there, and Einen comes out of the secret passageway. He calls for help, and a few guards come by, but while fighting Bowen and Kara, he gets injured, and it's taking a little bit of time to recover and heal, but we can still see, like, while he's fighting that, like, wounds are closing. Bowen and Kara are both captured, but Kara manages to wiggle away before they take them down to the dungeons. So, Bowen hopes that Kara manages to escape. She doesn't want her to stick around. And he's swept away to the dungeons. He spends multiple days there being interrogated by Einen. So Einen's asking questions like, where have you been these past few years? And who was the girl? And Einen says something along the lines of coming up with a very special way of thanking Bowen for his immortality and for their reunion. And he goes on to spout things about, like, the code being useless in this day and age, and I've done so much better without you, or my mother trying to get in my way. And so after those few days of just being interrogated and berated by Einen, Bowen has, like, a moment of, like, he has some quiet time. And Kara is seen through the bars of his cell. She's like, I've found the dragon. I know where he is. He's been keeping me safe for the past couple of days. So Bowen's like, why didn't you kill it? You know, it lies with every breath. And he's still not accepting the fact that maybe Einen has always just been
an asshole. Yeah,
been an asshole. And Kara's like, but he feels bad. Like, he's locked up right now and he's being very mistreated by the king, even though it's, like, literally his lifeline. And so she's like, he just wants to see the stars one last time before he dies. Will you help me with that? And Bowen's just like, I mean, I guess. So she's like, all right, here's the plan. And then we don't hear it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Classic. Cut away.
Classic. Yeah.
Cut away.
Yeah. So Bowen manages to convince a guard to get in his cell. I don't know whether it's just, like, not answering when they call him or something, like the classic just...
Yeah.
He beats the crap out of him and then escapes into the rest of the dungeons. Kara meets him partway and brings him into another secret tunnel that goes from the dungeon in the cave to where the dragon is trapped. Kara passively mentions that Einen had planned on feeding criminals to the dragon so it didn't starve.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So they get there and they begin unlocking the restraints, or maybe not unlocking, but trying to break the restraints on the dragon. And they're almost done when Einen and more guards come through the different secret passages. The dragon roars and shakes the caves and snaps the final chain before grabbing Bowen and Kara and running from the cave. So Einen is basically powerless to do anything about the dragon, but he gets his guards to shoot arrows at Bowen and Kara, and they, like, almost escape, but then they realize that one of the arrows has hit Kara. Ah.
Da, da, da.
So the dragon realizes that it's not actually a fatal wound, and that just, like, a little touch of magic would heal her. But Bowen is just like, no, you can't. Like, I'm not letting you touch her.
Mess up.
Yeah.
Her like you did.
He's like, she's better than Einen's ever been. and he actually says this out loud. He's like, she's better than Einen has ever been, and there's no way that I'm letting you near her to corrupt her in the same way that you did Einen. And the dragon is just like, what did you just say? You just said Einen wasn't that great, huh? Like, not in that wording, obviously. Make it a little more medieval, but he's just like, she came here to like stick her neck out for all of the people who are suffering the injustices in like under this king. Would he have ever done this before before he was given my heart? And Bowen is just like, oh shit, you're right. So yeah. So and the dragon's like, she's still pure and your teachings have strengthened her resolve, and nothing I do or that I could do could ever undo that. And he's just like, but I never taught her the way of the old code. Like, this isn't right. And he's just like, yeah, but you led by example. So Bowen reluctantly agrees to the dragon's proposition. Kara is healed, and she wakes up to hear Bowen apologizing to her for not treating her the same or giving her the same lessons about the old code, because she deserved it. She should have been taught these things. And she responds with something about like, oh, I already know about the old code from hearing stories from people who talked about the revered knights of the old code. And she was just happy that someone who seemed to follow the old code, or like even if they didn't spout the old code, they still followed it, was able to teach her anything at all. So they were having like a nice little touching moment of like, she's like, I knew you were a knight of the old code. You didn't have to teach me anything. It's fine. The dragon is just like, I'm sorry to interrupt, but he's coming. This is supposed to be like a serious pitch too, not even like comedy, but I'm just so yeah, the dragon's like, he's coming, it's time, kill me. And Bowen is just like, I can't do it because now I know it's not you that corrupted Einen. And the dragon's just like, yeah, but like, it was still my choice. Like, I knew he was not a good one to give my heart to, and I did it. So like, I have to atone. And Bowen's just like, oh, but I can't. And the dragon's just like, but you must. And then Einen crests the hill near them, and the dragon blocks the arrows that come their way. He shoots fire at the other knights and then rushes in and grabs Einen before the knights can do anything. So now the knights are at a stalemate because the dragon is holding Einen hostage. And Bowen is still hesitating. The dragon is basically like, he's tainted my heart. Like, I'd rather just end it now. That sounds really depressing when I say that out loud.
Sorry.
Instead of living in shame for the rest of my life. Free me from this. And so so Bowen is still kind of hesitating, but he's like, kind of like, okay, well, I understand that why you would want it. And Kara is just like, I understand. Let me do it. And Bowen's like, okay, no, we can't let you do it. Let's just, both do it. We'll share the sacrifice, I guess. And so at the same time, while just being watched by these dumbfounded knights, they stab the dragon and stab Einen at the same time. So Einen dies, obviously, and all of his previous wounds open up at the same time as the dragon is like disintegrating into this stardust and floating off into the sky. And Kara and Bowen just watch as they're like, and there's just like screaming in the background as people are like, oh my god, the king!
The king and the dragon.
The end.
What I like about yours is that you changed the whole story for the better without actually changing functionally any of the plot points.
I tried.
Like, most of the stuff, when I say functionally the plot points, I mean like most of the pillars of the movie are still there in terms of like Einen and the corruption, but you've made this sort of, the question is like, was Einen always that bad or was he corrupt? But then you use Kara as an example of why that could like, it works better with her as a parallel, and like as Bowen's new student, it works really, really well. I like that a lot, actually. And
and I really tried to make it so that it was very transparent that Bowen really pushed the old code on Einen, and Einen was having none of it, whereas Kara didn't get those lessons, and she didn't need those lessons either.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Great. That's probably one of your better pitches.
I think so.
But I also
I'm
totally understand the agony of listening to a long pitch now. So I apologize again for
I was trying to go through it as quick as possible, but while I was going through it, I was like, I can't skip any of this. It all like it fits, and if I skip it, then it doesn't make sense.
It's like back when I did the host.
Yeah.
That was too long, but
that was a long pitch.
Any last minute thoughts for Dragonheart?
No, I'm gonna watch the sequel now if I can find it.
Are we doing the sequels? Probably not right now.
We maybe like one of them.
Yeah, I don't know if I can do them all, but where can people find you?
You can find me at twitch.tv/Alyssa Lou with 3 O's, or you can find my handmade stuff at Alyssa Rose Handmade on Instagram.
You can find our band Robot Philosopher anywhere you listen to dope music, as well as on Instagram. You can also find our other channel, the CineMasters, more scripted content, and stick around here for more awesome episodes of this podcast and the CineCasters Classic every Friday. Thanks for chilling with us.
Yeah. Bye.